am compelled by Schlock.
Well, welcome to the best schlock in all of Christendom. I am your host, Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson, and this is my companion and co-host, Chris Anonymous. What is going on, Chris? How are you doing tonight?
I am doing well, sir. And how are you?
I'm doing great. Am I unmuted? I assume I'm unmuted.
You are unmuted. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted. We're loud and clear, unlike last week when we had that deliciously rough start. So for those who don't know, this is a show where we talk about schlocky movies. And what we do is we try to find stuff on the Tubi app where things are generally, always free to watch with some ads. And it's kind of like perusing the old video store when you were a kid. If you're old enough to remember that, you get to see all the old movies in the horror aisle and you're like, oh man, that's provocative. I'd like to see that. So that's what we're doing. That's pretty much how the show goes. Chris, you want to tell everybody just kind of what we do, how we do it?
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, we talk about schlocky movies, and there's good things about them and there's bad things about them. And of course there's schlocky things about them. So we break the show down into three broad segments that vary in length, from the good, the bad, and the schlock. And we just kind of hash it out, whether we agree or disagree, and laugh and all that good stuff. So yeah.
And currently, I don't know if we really know where the show airs and where it doesn't air. Right now, we're streaming on Facebook, but we'll be live actually on YouTube. Hopefully after this, we're going to be doing an after show. We're going to be talking about, I believe, the new Ghostbusters movie and the new Spider-Man movie. And so if you're watching this on YouTube, or you watch us on YouTube at any point in time, even if you're watching live on Facebook right now, just make sure you give us a like, comment to let us know that you're there. And if you have the ability to subscribe or follow and keep up to date with us, go ahead and do that. And wait around to the end to find out what movie we're going to be watching for the upcoming week. That way you can get on board with us and know exactly what the schlock to come
watch
is.
It during the week, so you can have reference points and kind of follow along with us.
Yeah,
it's like a big movie party.
It's a big movie party, the probably the biggest ever. So down to brass tacks, the movie we're talking about this week is Bloody New Year. It took me a while into the movie to figure out, it's not like Bloody New Year, like gory New Year. It's Bloody New Year, like
Bloody New Year,
like damned New Year, because
the
people in this movie are extremely British.
Almost as if
cheerio, governor.
Filmed in Britain, you know.
A lot of that. So usually I give some financial information about these movies, but my extensive research, which basically just takes me to IMDb or Wikipedia, didn't bring anything up. But I think it's worth noting that the director of this movie, I guess, fought pretty hard with the producers of this movie because they wanted it to be cheap and quick. And so eventually he kind of gave up on his vision, I think 2 days into shooting, and was just like, whatever. We're just gonna crap this out. And
with a British accent, like, whatever.
We're gonna crap this out to poopers.
Wow.
I don't know what they say in Britain.
That's spot on.
I could move there and fit right in. So, Chris, do you have anything for us? I just talked about the director and the producers, and we like to talk sort of about the web of schlock and how things are connected. This movie is a pretty isolated movie. Is that right?
So this is similar to the case we had with the very first Silent Night, Deadly Night, where it's a very isolated film. The writers don't have other credits. Sometimes they're producers or an editor or some other part in film, but they don't really have any other writing credits. The director had a handful of things. He pretty much stopped directing after this. I think he has a couple shorts. It
makes sense then.
Yeah, for a schlocky movie, his name is Norman J. Warren. And this is on Tubi. It's called Inseminoid.
He made Inseminoid?
He directed Inseminoid.
Oh, okay.
Which under another title. So I don't, probably one title in England and one title in America. But I saw that. I put it in my queue of like possible things to watch at some point in time because it just sounded crazy and weird. So there's also that. A lot of the actors never did anything else. And a lot of the actors went on to have fairly what it looks like consistent work on British television and movies.
So a lot didn't do anything and a lot did something?
Yeah, like about 50.
So like half and half?
Yeah, a lot and a lot. Yeah. Yeah, 60.
Which makes 100%.
60% of the time. So, but nothing I'd really heard of. A couple TV shows that like some kind of British murder mystery show and things like that, but nothing that was very like standoutish as like classic schlock or some big movie we'd heard of or so. Right. It didn't seem that they had a lot of work before this movie though. So a lot of the young teens kind of had maybe one or two things before this, and then they went on to have a fairly decent career.
Yeah, well,
that spanned,
good for them then.
Good for them
that they were able to get sort of a jumping off point.
Overall, isolated.
It's interesting that you bring up Inseminoid because I always thought that movie was like an older horror film. Is it or is it like 1980s, 1970s? Is it around?
I think it's 80s.
Okay. I just bring it up. Kind of a bad segue.
81.
81.
And it was
so
originally
this
called
movie,
Horror Planet.
Horror Planet.
Yep. Know what you're getting there.
I think I'm gonna have to look into that. I think I've seen that, and I think maybe I love it. Have to check it out. But so I guess this movie was supposed to be kind of a love letter to old 1950s horror, and that's why it has like the 1950s theme in it, and potentially one of the reasons why it's not too gory. I was going to say bloody, but that'd be the wrong dialect.
It's strange because it starts off very, very innocent and not gory, and it never gets super gory.
There's one part at the end where they're like about to, and they had to cut it for ratings.
There's an arc of creepiness and goriness and just violence that it ratchets up through the whole thing, which is really interesting. Let's get into the good. What did you like about this movie?
So you mentioned the beginning. I actually loved the beginning credits, the 1950s black and white. It looked like it was over an old like reel-to-reel projector, and they're having the New Year's Eve party, and they have that song over it. I think you posted it on the Twitter.
I did. I'm going to stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
Because the number one thing on my good list is the opening credits.
Yeah. It's so crazy to me because
it's so crazy. It's so fun.
That's just a really great scene.
Great scene.
It's kind of like there's two intros, and the first intro is this, and it's really great. And then there's the second intro at the carnival or whatever, which I won't talk about till we get to our bad column. But
there was another movie we watched recently that had like multiple beginnings, and some were good, and some Puppet Master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the classic who is it, Full Moon Productions, they have like a 10-minute intro credits and you love them.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I love this, and I'm 100% with you. Can I say one thing?
Is it still on the intro?
Yes.
Okay.
It's about the intro, but it's a broader thing.
Okay.
I love when movies start with a fun, upbeat song that like sets the tone for a movie. Like, yeah, I can forgive so much in a movie, and in the 80s did this so well. 90s did it a lot too, and sometimes it doesn't work. But man, you start a movie with just a fun song or an appropriate song. It could even be a dark song.
Yeah.
And it just puts you in the right mood to like just get into the whole emotional vibe of a film. And it's one of my favorite things. And they did it here. Do you like that in movies?
I can't think of any examples currently, but I loved it in this movie. I mean, I thought, let me confess something. I brought up the Blockbuster movie, walking through the horror aisles as a kid at the beginning. I didn't know anything about this movie. I picked it purely based on the cover art that I saw. Here, let me see if I can show that to you. If you can see the skull with the party hat and the little noisemaker thing, I was like, this looks cool. And I did watch a trailer.
Such a misleading poster.
Right. And so I picked it purely based on that. And so when the intro began with all the black and white footage, I was like patting myself on the back a little. I was like, oh man, I think I picked a really, really great movie. And then, well, it wasn't, but right after it went to the black and white, and this is my last good thing, is that they had a really great gag in it. I don't know what you would call it. The mirror gag is what I've been calling it. It's right after the black and white footage happens and we go into color, but we're still at the New Year's Eve party. And the girl that we've kind of been following, she goes up to the mirror, and I think we have a picture of this if we can get it up. She goes up to the mirror and she's like fixing her makeup, and she touches the mirror. She puts her hand on the mirror. Yeah, this is the shot right here. She puts her hand on the mirror, and then she steps back. The camera follows her back, and then the camera follows her toward the mirror again. She like steps away and steps toward the mirror again. And then a hand comes in and grabs her and pulls her into the mirror, meaning when she walked away from the mirror, someone on the crew took out the reflective part of the mirror, and they had another Christmas tree there that looks near identical, right? But there's actually an empty space. I don't know. I just thought that was a great gag. I was looking forward to stuff like that the whole movie, and the movie does have like some good practical effects, cheap practical effects that I don't think the effects necessarily are what went wrong with this movie. I mean, they can be cheap, but they can still be good. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I enjoyed that aspect of it.
So my second thing I have in my good column, the mirror jumped to the 80s. We are on the same page this time, man.
Man, it's like we were watching it together.
Yeah, kind of. There's an old French director called Jean Cocteau, and I love his movies. But he did a lot of like surreal stuff with practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
And the mirror scene is in I can't remember if it was Blood of a Poet or Beauty and the Beast, or one of those early films of his had a lot of stuff like that, which I've always loved. That they also do some reverse film in this movie, Bloody New Year.
Yeah, they had a really great shot of that.
Yeah, and I love when you reverse film on purpose for like an aesthetic choice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also had
what I'm thinking of is when all the billiard balls or snooker balls or whatever they call them over there
come back.
They come back together, But
And then-
I had to rewind it and watch it a couple of times because the camera, it's at first on the couple leaving the room, and then it pans down and you see the balls come together. And it kind of blew my mind. I thought that was a really great effect because they must have had the actors, of course, walking backwards in real life, and then they filmed up. And I just thought that was so great.
Yeah, then there's so many moments in this movie like that I just loved. The practical effects for being cheap and amateurish, I thought were great.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many fun, and it was a throwback to the 1950s horror movies. 100%. I'm thinking of like House on Haunted Hill, and like it had so many fun haunted house like practical effects, like when the banister head like bites her arm and holds on. I loved that. That was so great. Just this like little moment, and it's super cheesy and schlocky, but it was just really fun. Couple more good things, and we'll switch to bad. This isn't necessarily a good thing. It was just a good thing for me. British 80s horror. I really liked seeing 80s horror with teenagers who weren't like your classic American like tropes. Like it was like an 80s horror movie, but with British teenagers. And I had never seen that before. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's true on my end. I don't know how much I enjoyed it, but it was something unique to my viewing experience for sure.
I would like to see more of it to see if I love it in general, but for this I loved it.
Yeah, I think we need I Know What You Did Last Summer, but it takes place in like, I don't know, Wales. Ireland or something. Yeah.
Somewhere. The couple other things. This could be in your bad. This could be in your schlock. For me, it's in the good. I call it the linger shot. I don't know how many times in the movie the main actors left the scene, and then we pan over to either get exposition or backstory or some little horror moment. So we kind of have a little more knowledge than the people in the film. And it happens so much. I'm thinking of the time when they pan over to the TV and we start to learn what's actually going on. But there's so many times where you just stay on a shot and have the little Santa Claus guy start walking, or have like a ghost come in, or the billiards. You were talking about that. They had already left. Right. And I really loved the linger shots for a haunted house flick. It made it fun.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, but yeah, what's bad for you?
Well, I got a whole list of bad. So right at the top of my bad column, I have written in big letters, acting. I don't know why. It may have been the Britishness of it. The Lindsay character, I just thought it was such a high British accent. Like I was just like plugging my ears through this whole thing, and I don't know if that's even fair, because I don't know if the acting was bad and it was just, a combination of things not coming together at the end.
I don't think the acting was bad per se, as just not good.
I think a lot of it has to do with the dialogue, right? Like the dialogue doesn't take us anywhere, and therefore it seems like maybe the acting is bad.
Yeah, and I'm guessing a lot of these didn't have a lot of takes.
They're trying to make it quick and cheap, so they probably just boom, boom, boom.
I think the actors all did a fine job with what they had. I think the dialogue was pretty bad for most of the film. There were a couple key bits of dialogue. There's one line that's probably my favorite line of the year. I mean, it's early in the year, but like I will quote this line for the rest of my life. Score upon score score. Right. I think it's Janet, but I can't
say it in your best British accent.
I'll try and imitate her. Oh, dead horse and barbed wire. I don't like this place. Like they're going up to the hotel and she's just like commenting like, oh, it's a dead horse and barbed wire. I don't like this place.
Yeah.
And her delivery.
Not ominous at all.
Yeah, just like, oh my God, that is the greatest delivery of one of
and
the
then they
best
do that
lines.
linger shot
Yep.
onto like a danger sign.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, maybe I'll step back what I said about the acting. I think that really a lot of the badness in this movie comes from kind of an incomplete / incoherent storyline, because there's so many threads in this movie that never pan out and they don't go anywhere. Like the carnies, like I didn't understand what was happening there. Like,
Yeah, I have a problem with the carnies. I have a problem with that whole scene.
so that's the second intro,
Right.
right?
And
That's where the movie goes off the rails and you can start telling, oh, we might not have something great on our hands.
So great location. Like,
Yeah,
so here's something bad, the video quality, but I enjoyed the video quality.
Yeah, it's something I settled into for sure.
But
it didn't bother me by the end.
It was cool that they filmed at that real place. You could tell it was like this real like amusement park, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they cost them like 300 pounds. So what's that, like $2 million? I don't know what the conversion is, but
I don't either. But that sounds accurate.
Yeah, sounds right. Yeah,
that sounds right.
Don't Google that. So it cost them only 300 pounds to film there, I think for the day or something. And this shot that's up here right now, I just had to like get this in here. The low stakes, low speed boat chase, like as they're leaving the carnival, like these guys like jump up onto the boat and they're going like, I don't know, 10 miles an hour, and they have to like push him off the boat, and then they like go flying into garbage and yeah.
No, it's
I knew I had something special on my hands.
So
when I was watching this,
like story wise, what's really weird about the second intro at the amusement park is that it doesn't focus on any character right away.
Right.
Like, and what little dialogue we have doesn't let you know anything about the characters. You don't really get their names right away. You're not sure who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who's your protagonist. It's a strange thing. It's like we're just following someone for a minute or two, and then we'll follow someone else for a minute or two.
Right. And I did catch the name Spud right away.
Yep. And then they rescue the girl from the two bad guys, but then the operator of the machine is also a bad guy.
Yeah, what were they, like family or something?
Yeah, like I'm running this machine, and if you want to go mess with some kids on it or some young girl by herself, go ahead.
And they're talking to this fortune teller, and I wish I would have taken her advice, because I think that she looked into her crystal ball here and saw that the movie wasn't very good, and she screams, and then she's out. So like that's just another one of the many threads in the opening scene, right? We're supposed to be establishing things that are going to happen in this movie, right?
Right.
And the fortune teller, I mean, she clearly sees that like they have some bad fate, but I don't know. It just doesn't really play out. But well, actually, let me roll that back again. I'm rolling back a lot of things because I think that there's maybe there is something in here to latch on to that is maybe really good. So we have the fortune teller that we just saw, and she looks into her crystal ball. Well, actually, let me rewind. The girl goes into the mirror, right? The fortune teller looks into the crystal ball. Later, the American girl looks in the snow globe, and later she is trapped behind a mirror.
Yes.
So maybe that's like some foreshadowing of being like this theme of like being trapped inside of something. Yeah. And I think that's there, and that is a legit theme, but again, it's not.
I have a theory about that. We'll save that to the end.
Okay.
We're running out of time. We're talking so much. We want to add a couple minutes onto this one. What are we doing here?
Yeah, sure. Let's get into the schlock and see where it takes us.
To get into the schlock, I'm going to say the last bad thing I have.
Okay.
The idea of a time warp, which is what this movie was, just does not explain all the crazy away. Like that's not how That's not how time warps work. They don't turn people into zombies, and they don't make a house come alive and have a, So that was just All right, what do you got for schlock?
Well, so my schlock goes into like the time warp, and like I've been saying about the different narrative threads within the story, because I think there's like some really cool things in this, but they just don't pan out. So we get the lingering shots on the television that show that they're conducting some sort of flight experiment with like an invisible plane or something. And then later we see the pilot of the plane wandering around.
Yes.
They start to go up into his camp, and he has all of these mirrors hanging around, and we hear over the radio, Operation Mirror, Mayday, Operation Mirror. And so I'm like, okay, now we're like getting some meat to the story. Like maybe it's something like a mirror dimension, like what's the Star Trek episode where they like go into the alternate dimension and they all have beards and they're all evil? Like,
beard world.
Right. Maybe that's what happened during the crash and the time warp. And that's why people are like kind of evil zombies. Instead of alive, they're dead. Instead of good, they're bad. Instead of the house being friendly, it's haunted, malevolent. Yeah. So, that could have explained a lot of stuff. But then what do? They like kill the pilot and he explodes into dust, and we never get any more of that story.
Well, I think you have to piece it together. I think you're on the right track. I think it's when that radio saying over and over, Operation Mirror failure. Operation Mirror failure. This is not a time warp. This is a mirror universe. You're 100% correct. It's a mirror universe.
Yeah.
And what happens in a mirror universe? Things are topsy-turvy. Things that normally don't work do work. The banister can come alive. Anything can happen.
Right.
Okay. Now, it's not just any kind of mirror world. If we go back to the amusement park and going through the haunted house, this is a funhouse mirror world. It's one of those weird curvy mirrors, right? So it's not just even a regular mirror world. It's like, so anything goes. It's equivalent to a dream world. And a lot of the shots they had and a lot of the special effects they had are and even the pacing and how you cut to different things felt very much like how dreams work, as opposed to how like a story or a movie normally works. So when I had pieced all that together and was kind of going back in my mind watching it, I'm like, okay, it's not supposed to make sense as this, and this. It's supposed to be like a roller coaster ride or walking through a haunted house in an amusement park. And so that's why you have that amusement park in the beginning. It sets up thematically how you're supposed to experience the movie. And I'm probably really reading into it.
Giving it a lot of credit, buddy.
Give it a lot of credit.
But that is a really cool idea. And, if the director is fighting with the producers, and maybe that is this original vision, right? Like these really great ideas that just didn't come to fruition.
Yeah. And then there's just so many great visual moments that are schlocky to me that I just love. Like, when the movie attacks right here, it's amazing. This guy dressed up as a sheik walks over. So this came the Ring, right?
Yeah.
Little girl in the Ring. Yeah.
I definitely thought this was a cool part. I thought it was silly that he died after like getting scratched in the face, but it's a
well, yeah. And in my bad column,
monster thing.
They were way too carefree about Spud's death. Like they hated that guy. Yeah. They're like, it seemed like they were happy. And then we have things like How to Kill a Table Monster. Like, okay, a time warp does not create a table monster, but a nightmare funhouse mirror world creates a table monster.
Right. Or a guy in a ghillie suit.
Or a guy in a ghillie suit.
That comes out of a table.
Yeah. The trash heap has spoken.
Yeah, that house was interesting. Right before this scene, she gets attacked maybe by by a net. She opens the door and the net falls on her. And I couldn't tell if the net was attacking her or if she was just like, I'm really bad at getting out of nets.
Yeah, the net hurts. Or like the elevator attacking.
Yeah.
And then putting her in carbonite later.
Yeah, and which her boobs, like her nose and her boobs were like sticking out of the elevator. But I have to admit, so I looked at the box art for this, and then I looked up a trailer for this, and I saw that like the film quality really wasn't great, but it's this shot right here in the trailer that sold me on it. And I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be a good pick. But really in real life or in the actual movie, the hands grab her and she keeps her arms down like this and just screams and like doesn't do anything to help herself. But that's horror movies for you.
Yeah. And just, they just threw in the kitchen sink, man. It was just everything. Like you had the elevator, and then because she later on, she like pushes back out and it's like total carbonite, right?
Yeah.
Like Han Solo. And then the monster, the banister monster, and then why is the one girl a silver zombie?
Yeah, I was going to put that in my bad column. I really hated her makeup, but I didn't want to talk about how much I like the practical effects and then how I hated that makeup. But man, I hated her makeup and I didn't get it. And I feel like they could have. Okay, here's something they could have done. They could have taken like some red markers, right, and put like little cross hatches on her from the net, and she would have looked so much better.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. No, you go ahead. The other thing I want to point out to think about is the haunted laugh track when they're outside.
That made me think of Monty Python, man. Right. That made me think of the Flying Circus.
That made me think, are the gods watching? Like, is this some kind of like otherworldly sitcom? Like,
oh, no, that's the people laughing at the party. It's the same track, because when I was getting the screenshots for the show here, I was watching the beginning again, and it's the same audio clips from the party previously. Okay.
Because in my mind, I'm like, maybe this is like some kind of like show that some evil entities of a lot of power are just tuning into and watching people fumble through this haunted horror movie.
Potentially, like the trees were laughing. Because like weren't the trees shaking, and that's where like laughing was coming from.
Yep.
Anyway, it was a complete mess. I think
it was a complete.
Do you have anything else? Do you have anything else for us tonight, Chris?
This is a little meta, but I have that Darby chose another Christmas movie, even though he said he wasn't. This is such a
New Year's movie. Oh, I guess there's a Christmas tree in there.
Christmas tree, the whole thing. It's like Christmas in July.
You get to pick the next movie. So tell us, what are we watching on Tubi this week?
You're watching The Class of 1999.
Class of 1999. Ooh,
where robots are teachers.
Yeah, I remember that from my youth. All right. Well, we're checking it out. Class of 1999. I'm Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. And we will see you next week somewhere on the big wide internet. We've been compelled by Schlock.
Schlock, schlocky, schlock, schlock. I am compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Wait, no.